Whilst all this was going on last night, Rishi Sunak was being interviewed by Harry Cole, the political editor of The Sun newspaper. Have a look at what he had to say about his Rwanda bill and the European Court of Human Rights.
I believe that our scheme, including the Rwanda part of it, all our plans to tackle illegal migration. Let me just answer the question, Harry. I believe that our plans are compliant with all our international obligations, including the ECHR. But I believe that border security and controlling illegal migration is more important than our membership of any foreign court.
Well, there you are. It sounded really good, didn't it? But did he actually mean it? Would he seriously consider us saying to the European Court of Human Rights, we can't put up with this. We can't have you stopping planes going to Rwanda, as you did a year ago. We're actually going to leave. Did he actually mean it? Well, I tell you what, I was absolutely certain as soon as I heard about this, that what he was doing was telling an audience what they wanted to hear, that he didn't mean it for one little bit. Well, this afternoon, we sought clarification on this, and GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope, asked this question of Number 10, Downing Street. And he asked, and he said, GB News are reporting that Rishi Sunak would consider leaving the ECHR. And the response was, no, only if the planes were stopped from going, then we would consider the option of leaving. Well, let's just think about those words one more time. Is he saying he just wants to look at it, or is he saying he really intends to do something? He's saying if it came to it and the ECHR was the block on the Rwanda scheme, we would consider leaving. Yes. So we would consider leaving. Not we will leave, not we will give the British people a referendum. I don't believe a single word of it. I haven't believed a single word Sunak or any of his predecessors have said on stopping illegal immigration. I'll ask you, what do you think? Does Sunak actually mean it? Love to get your thoughts. Farage at gbnews.com. I'm joined down below by Martin Howe KC, barrister, specialist in European Union law, and somebody who has become, after a period as chairman of Lawyers for Britain, but someone who's become, I think, increasingly disenchanted with the Conservative Party and with their statements. You saw what he had to say, Martin, on The Sun yesterday. He didn't really mean it, did he?
I agree with you. I think that this was what our American friends would call a complete nothing burger. If he was serious, that the European Convention on Human Rights has been causing disastrous problems with our ability to control our borders and prevent illegal migration for years. He has had 18 months as Prime Minister. It was evident when he became Prime Minister that it was impossible within the context of the ECHR and its very activist court to maintain control of our borders. And he's done absolutely nothing about it. Indeed, the only thing he's actually done was to sack Suella Braverman because she wanted to get serious about the immigration problem. I think my assessment is that he has not the slightest intention of doing anything serious to stop the boats, despite all his protestations. He will not do what is necessary. He ordered his whips to get the amendments to his Rwanda bill that might have made it more effective voted down and resulted in a bill which will be completely ineffective and I think is a piece of performance art. It's not actually a serious bill intended to solve the problem. It's just a piece of political theatre designed to make him look tough.
It's also worth remembering there are quite large numbers in his own party who believe that membership of the ECHR is the right thing for us. And they point out that Churchill, over 70 years ago, was one of its biggest advocates. What would you say to that, Martin Howe?
Well, there's a bit of mythology about this sort of Churchill advocacy. But of course, what we have to remember is the European Convention on Human Rights, if you actually read the text, is pretty unobjectionable. It contains a series of rights that almost everyone across the political spectrum would endorse. But the problem has been not the convention itself, but this Court of Human Rights at Strasbourg that spent, the last 70 years since the convention was adopted, creating whole new doctrines and changing the meaning of the original convention. I mean, one of the most interesting things, important things, is the convention actually contains nothing at all about asylum rights. That wasn't an oversight. Yeah. That was deliberate, because in fact the subject of asylum was meant to be dealt with by a parallel convention called the Geneva Refugees Convention. But what's happened is the Strasbourg Court has created a whole series of doctrines,
and
which
power
has gummed up, completely gummed up the works when it comes to trying to deport illegal entrants from the UK.
Well, that's certainly how it looks to me. Martin Howe, KC, thank you again for joining us on this programme. Well, I'm joined down the line again by Shoaib Khan, immigration lawyer. And, the point that Martin Howe was making is that this was all well and good over 70 years ago. We know why the court was set up. We know what the convention was for. But through judicial activism, it's now on overreach. What say you to that?
Yeah, hi. I'm not sure what we mean by judicial overreach, really. I mean, if we give, judges the duty that they have to adjudicate cases according to a certain law, then that's a duty. They should do that. But secondly, I think, we need to just look at the statistics or the figures to see it's hardly an interventionist court. Every year we have maybe 2, 3, 4 at the most judgments against the UK. That's absolutely nothing. In terms of the percentage of cases, only 2%, 3%, 4% of cases brought against the UK result in a violation or a breach being found. So I think, if anything, the court isn't interventionist at all. It does apply what's called, the margin of appreciation, or basically deferring to government, saying, they're the national governments, they know about their country, they know about the community, they know about their society. We need to defer to that. And I think that, the European Court is very, very precious about that and very, very careful about that. Even in terms of, Rule 39, the interim orders, the injunctions, as they're called in the UK, that, became, a huge highlight in the media as well. There's only a handful, maybe 1, 2, 3 in a whole year. I think in the whole of 2023, we only had one interim injunction against the UK. And that was about, yes.
But here's the point. The Rwanda bill is very much the centrepiece of what the government wants to do, wants to show the electorate that we have the ability to send planes to Rwanda. And it was an unnamed judge from that court at 10 o'clock at night that stopped the plane from going. That's the point here, isn't it?
Well, it is, but good for the judge, because look what happened. Look at the chronology that we now know. The High Court at the time, the UK High Court, found the bill to be lawful. Obviously, those people then went to the ECHR, who stopped it and said, until the Supreme Court has had its last word, the flights will not be allowed to go. And the Supreme Court found it to be unlawful. If those people had actually been flown over, we would have had to bring them back. The UK Supreme Court, and not relying on the ECHR, relying on the Refugee Convention, found that it would have been unlawful for those people to have been flown. So, thank you to the ECHR judge. Our High Court judge was wrong at that time, on that day. The ECHR was right. And our Supreme Court proved that. So, of course, good. Just imagine the hassle and the money if we had flown over all those asylum seekers there. They had spent a year in Rwanda, and then we had to spend money bringing them all back. So we need to thank the ECHR for that.
Yeah. So what you're really saying is that people can just illegally pay, young men from all over the world who destroy their identity documents can just illegally come into Britain in unlimited numbers, and there's absolutely nothing we can do.
No, what I'm saying is the government needs to act lawfully. The Supreme Court, the UK Supreme Court, found that the Rwanda bill, as it was at the time, was unlawful. And look at what Parliament did. Instead of actually doing something on the ground or making any changes, they, waved a magic wand. Rwanda is hereby declared safe. Sorry, but that's absolutely ridiculous. That's such a childish, immature thing to do. The point is, you liaise with Rwanda, you liaise with the courts, you work collaboratively with the parties, you try to make it safe. You bring those guarantees before the Supreme Court again. You don't just ignore the Supreme Court decision, reverse it in Parliament. What's the point of the Supreme Court then? Every time it declares something the government doesn't want, then Parliament next day issues an order saying, so I think that's completely ridiculous. It just shows that the government, I mean, even the government isn't claiming that it's compliant with the ECHR. They failed to make that declaration in Parliament. As soon as you bring legislation court, if you do believe, as James cleverly should have, if you believed it was in compliance with our international obligations, he could have made that declaration. He refused to. He knows it's not compliant either.
I think you're probably right. Shoaib Khan, thank you for putting the argument.